horror movies, haunted houses, good old ghost stories around the fire. It's October, and that means I went over to Reddit and found some pretty terrifying paranormal experiences. But before we get started, if you are a fan of cults, crime, and crooked culture, or anything spooky, then just go ahead and hit that subscribe button, or I will haunt you when I'm dead. My daughter was seeing eyes. My eldest daughter was a very strange child. She would wake us up from sleep several nights a week, saying she was seeing eyes in her room. Being a working mom, I needed sleep very badly, and when she would wake me, I would say, "Okay, sweetie, just say your prayers." She would come back stating she had already said her prayers and the eyes were still there. I realize now that she was seeing spirits and had a gift. Not understanding this at the time, I didn't know how to intervene or to comfort her. She is grown up now, but her son, my grandson, also sees things, and he asked me for help one time when he kept seeing something in his closet. How would you have handled this? Thank you so much for asking. Personally, I would douse the house in gasoline, burn it to the ground, and never come back. Someone much more calm than me on Reddit responded with this. My daughter used to see red eyes in her room when she was around 5 or 6. Perhaps show your grandson that he can imagine himself standing in a light. This will protect him from anything. The best advice I can give you is to just ignore them. Eyeballs in my freaking room. You think I'm capable of ignoring that? Well, it's spooky season, and you want to know what's been keeping me up at night? The fact that so many Americans had their social security numbers breached last year. Doesn't that make you feel great? Don't even get me started about online scams and identity theft. I have found a solution, and that's the sponsor of today's video, Aura. Aura is basically a digital guardian angel for me that I just keep in my pocket, monitoring the dark web and making sure my passwords aren't compromised. I've kept them busy. Aura also protects against those super annoying scammy calls. Plus, they provide awesome things that I don't truly understand, like antivirus software and giving me a VPN that encrypts my online activity. But my favorite part about it all is that it is so simple, and I love simple. Now I can be social without compromising my social. So while I'm peacefully snoozing, do what you need to do and take control over your own digital safety by going over to aura.com/cultureshock to start your 14-day free trial today. I asked my daughter to go to sleep, and a man told me no. My 10-year-old daughter sleep talks, and sometimes she'll sit up in bed and look around. Last night, she dozed off on the couch, and 15 minutes later, she sat up and said, "Where did it go?" She laid down and again asked me where it went. I said, "Go back to sleep." Then I immediately heard a man's voice right in front of me say, "No." I looked at my daughter and she was already asleep again. There was a man who passed away in our living room in 2017. There was also a man who shot his wife in 1986 in the driveway across the street. We also live next door to a cemetery. I've never felt spooked until last night, but I haven't slept since. The voice was so aggressive. It felt so close and so real. Hearing a disembodied voice? Absolutely not. Mortician here. I need help. I've been a mortician for over a decade and have never had any issues with anything paranormal. Around 6 months ago, a new girl started working at the funeral home. She and her family claim to be psychic, and they do different divination rituals. She's even admitted to me that she has done black magic to get back at an ex-boyfriend. But here's the deal. Like I said, nothing has ever happened to me regardless of the funeral homes I've worked in. I've been there all alone, all hours of the night, and nothing. But in the past few months, weird things have started happening. My other coworker has had weird things happen to her home, things randomly appearing, or pictures flying across the room. At the funeral home, we've heard whispering on multiple occasions and doors slamming. But now, it's my turn. The other night, I'm embalming someone alone, and I thought I kept seeing someone standing out of the corner of my eye, but I kept telling myself it was just my mind messing with me. So I have the door open into the embalming room. The door going outside has a metal bar that you pull to latch. Everything is locked, obviously, since I'm alone. No more than 5 minutes after I saw someone standing out of the corner of my eye, I hear a massive slam against the metal bar on the door. It was incredibly loud and jarring, and I almost had a heart attack. What is this? Do you think it's someone I've helped over the years making themselves known? Or is it more than that? I think the new girl brought something with her. Her grandmother has even told her that she has a spirit attached. I'm afraid that if it's more than just a spirit, cleansing will make it more upset and make things worse. I'm terrified and really don't want to work alone. If it's creeping out the mortician, then that's enough evidence for me. I think we should move on and leave it at that. My Chemical Romance said it best when they said, "Teenagers scare the living shit out of me." But I think that about every kid, despite their age group. After hearing these stories, you're probably going to agree. What is the scariest thing your child has said to you? Years ago on Christmas Day, my son turned 3. We went to my aunt's house, who was hosting Christmas for my dad's side of the family. Keep in mind that my dad passed away when I was 15. Once we arrive at my aunt's house, my son sat in front of the front door and would not come inside to get food or to join the rest of us. Eventually, he comes inside to get me and my aunt and says we have to open the door because the man wants to come inside. We thought it was just his imagination, but then he got extremely agitated and said, "The tall man wants to come in." Then he ran to the living room and pointed at a photo of my dad. I had never explained to him that my dad had died or shown him photos or anything. And my dad was sitting in the photo, no indication that he was tall. And yes, we did open the door for a few minutes, just in case. 3 months ago, I was driving past a cemetery, and my 3-year-old says, "Daddy, why is that man in the car?" A couple weeks later, we were driving by another cemetery, and my daughter says, "Why is that man standing there looking at me?" Now, maybe there was someone there I didn't see, but that was creepy enough. She also made a few other comments in the past when living in our old and definitely haunted house. The things she said matched up with the discovery of the house having been built by an old man. She's also made comments about her great-grandma who she never met, just like the previous story. My youngest daughter is 12 now, but she's always had a fear of water. She's absolutely terrified of it. When she was about 3, I was having a terrible time trying to get her into the bathtub. I was really frustrated and asked her, "Why can't you just get in the bath? Why are you afraid of the water?" Without missing a beat and as serious as can be, she said, "Because that's how I died before." When my daughter first started talking, she said, "I chose you and pushed the other one out of the way." Now, I had a miscarriage before conceiving my daughter. She also said that she remembered being in my stomach, that it was warm and red, and that she had a toy snake with her. To this day, I'm convinced that was the umbilical cord. When I was young, my mom took me to Comic-Con, and we stopped by a ghost hunting table. Apparently, I said, "Oh, they should come to our house and talk to Steven." The man at the table said, "Is Steven your friend?" Probably just trying to humor me. But I said, "Yeah, he lives on the ceiling and only speaks in whispers. He doesn't have eyes or a face or hands, but he watches me when I sleep." The man looked horrified. About 15 years ago, I was a nanny, and I took the child I was watching to a play date. The other child we were visiting gave me a big hug and said, "I remember when you were my mom, then Uncle Danny killed you." The kids went off to play, and the mother and I just looked at each other. I think he witnessed a murder. My friend's child was also 3 when something similar happened to me. They asked me to babysit him so they could go on a date. When I got to their house, they said he wouldn't come out of his room and wouldn't tell them why. I walked in and he was staring at the corner of the ceiling above the door. I asked, "Avery, are you okay?" He looked so fearful and said, "The green man doesn't like you." I immediately felt a chill run all the way down my back because the tone in his voice sounded so much deeper than how he normally talked. Somehow I managed to ask, "The green man?" He nodded and pointed to the corner. I turned to look but didn't see anything. I heard his mom gasp when he pointed, so I turned and asked her, "Do you know what he's talking about?" She nodded and gestured for me to follow them into their bedroom, where she and her husband told me the two of them have had a shared nightmare a few days before about a green creature that told them it was coming for their son. Now, I've never had a paranormal experience, I've never seen a ghost or a UFO, but the skin on my neck got really cold, and I thought I felt something brush against me. But after that night, they called in a holy person who they said cleansed the house, and they never had another visit from the green man as far as I know. I did lose touch with them a few years later, but I've always wondered about that night. My son is 3 and my daughter is 15. One night, my husband and I were putting him to bed and reading him his usual bedtime story. Out of nowhere, he told us to tell Sissy not to come into his room at night. We were confused and asked, "Does Sissy come into your room at night?" He calmly replied, "Yes. She crawls on my ceiling like a spider and makes weird faces at me." My husband and I were really freaked out, but managed to keep our composure. Out loud in that moment, we said, "We do not give permission for anyone to come into your bedroom at night." We did tell our daughter about it, and she kind of freaked out. We are still very unsettled, to say the least. That's going to wrap it up for today's stories. I hope you enjoyed this episode and are as unsettled as I am now. If Reddit stories are your kind of thing, be sure to check out one of these videos or my Reddit playlist next. And while you're watching that, go over to my merch store and pick up a comfy hoodie or a cute little candle like you see right there. Keep it spooky, and I will see you guys in the next one.